Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Benga.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Staggers. Present. Mayor Munson.
Here, quorum present. Tonight, we asked Dee Knudsen if she would lead us in invocations, and when she's finished, then we'll just say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful summer day, and thank you for all the blessings that you have given all of us. Please be with us as we continue to try to make the very best decisions for this great city of Sioux Falls. Please be with us during our most difficult, when we have the most difficult topics in front of us and when we have less serious topics in front of us to make difficult decisions. Thank you again for all of these other city councilors and for our mayor and all of our staff, and keep them safe and be with us always. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's start out with the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any additions or deletions or a motion?
Move for approval.
Move for
Second,
approval.
Kavanaugh.
Second, Kavanaugh. Comments on motion, there being none, all in favor, vote yes. All opposed, vote no. Diane, please.
Council members Howes.
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
Knudsen.
Yes.
Benninga.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Has been approved. Move to the approval of the regular agenda. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Move for approval.
Second, Benninga.
Benninga. Comments on motion, there being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Diane.
Council members Howes.
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
Knudsen.
Yes.
Benninga.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Stands approved. We'll move to the petitions, item 11.
We have a conditional use permit at 1701 West 12th Street.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Jeffrey Schmidt, representing the planning staff this evening. Planning staff this evening has 11 items on council. 8 of the items are rezonings, and you'll have first readings this evening. And the second readings will be September 3rd. Based on that, tonight, I was going to mention a little bit about the 2015 Comprehensive Development Plan for the City of Sioux Falls. That plan was adopted back in December of 1996. Inside of there's 14 general goals that we reference throughout our planning. I'll just have you bring it up later, Steve, because I'll be referencing it throughout tonight, specifically during our rezonings. There's 14 general goals in there. Underneath each of the goals, there's a little description, and then within the first chapter, there are policy frameworks for the urban section, for the planned and future urbanized section, and the rural section. There's 11 more sections and chapters within the planned development for the city of Sioux Falls. So tonight when I reference the 2015 plan, that's the sections and the maps that I'm talking about within the 2015 plan. The conditional use tonight, it's on West 12th Street. It's in the C2 zone. It has 0.65 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for commercial. The conditional use regulations call for such uses to be designed in a manner that encourages display towards the lot interior rather than towards the right-of-way for the majority of the inventory. The petitioner shall take particular care to provide landscaping around the lot and throughout the interior of the display area to minimize heat, dust, pollution, and glare. Currently, this site is improved with 2 structures, paved parking and fencing. There are 2 existing signs in the site, which are an existing freestanding off-premise and freestanding on-premise sign. The site was previously used as an Elman rental business. Therefore, the fencing does provide outdoor storage areas on the site. The applicant has provided addendums to this application, and she provided another one today. She continues to help work with the planning staff to meet the current zoning standards for the city of Sioux Falls. The plan does depict the minimum storage needed for the site for parking. The landscaping standards have been met on this site. There was some existing setbacks and landscaping area that was blacktop that is prohibited by city ordinance, so they've addressed that issue. The applicant will be required to redevelop this site again under the purview of current city standards set forth by the Code of Ordinances. The applicant has done that. Because the subject application does comply with the 2015 Growth Management Plan, this application has been recommended for approval. To send staff report.
Are there questions of Jeff on item 11? Kermit?
Yeah, Jeff, you mentioned about the black topping that was in accordance with the city ordinance. I wasn't quite clear. What's that all about?
There's currently a section, Steve just mentioned it in number 4, that was along the street that had been blacktopped.
Mm-hmm.
That is against the city ordinances, so the new applicant would have to go in there and remove that asphalt and put in a city-approved landscape.
Do you have any idea how much this landscaping is going to cost?
No, I do not.
Further questions? If not, thank you very much, Jeff. Oh, are there furthers that wish to address the council on item 11? Are there further people that want to address the council?
Move for approval.
Move for approval,
Second, Smith.
Is there a second? Be a second.
Second,
Okay,
Smith.
thanks. Okay. Comments on motion, there being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Diane?
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Item 11 has been approved. Item 12.
We have a major amendment at 1200 East 57th Street.
This is a 1-acre site. The comprehensive plan calls for office. It also, underneath office, would allow for personal services. A final development plan for 2 office buildings was approved in April of 1994. There was a major amendment in May of 2001, which allowed a dance studio in a tenant space directly to the north of this subject tenant space. Tonight, you're receiving another major amendment for this office area. The floor plan depicts 4 tenant spaces. The applicant would utilize one of these tenant spaces. The hours of operation as proposed are 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. Currently, sub-area D in this plan development allows for office uses along 57th Street. Although personal services are allowed in an office district, which would include care of a person or their apparel, the care of a pet is not a personal service. Pet grooming is considered retail service and trade, therefore we'd need a major amendment tonight to allow this type of use. The subject application does or is an appropriate land use in this type of area and would be a good transitional zone between commercial and residential and receive support from Planning Commission. Send staff report.
Questions of Jeff on item 12. Are there questions? Kermit?
I'm sorry, this is not about item 12, but in regard to that blacktopping, do you happen to know the ordinance or code on that with the number?
No, not.
Okay.
Okay. We're on item 12. Is there further questions? If not, on item 12. Is there others that wish to address the council on item 12?
Move for approval.
Move for approval, second?
Second, Kavanaugh.
Second, Kavanaugh. Comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Diane, please.
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Item 12 has been approved. Item 13.
Major amendment at east of Marion Road, south of Genie Drive, north of the interstate.
This major amendment currently encompasses approximately 131 acres at the southwest corner of I-229 and Louise Avenue 26th, if you want to look on your monitor on the TV screen. The comprehensive plan calls for multifamily at the intersection of Genie Drive and Marion Road and along I-29, and single-family residential for the remainder of the subject property. Since 1979, the petitioner has been approved through various conditional use permits to extract sand and gravel at this site. Throughout the operation of extractions, the intent upon conclusion of this was to develop a lake with residential land uses surrounding it. Back in 1999, the Lake Park PD was allowed with 3 sub-areas. Then in 1997, the Planning Commission allowed a preliminary development plan for various sub-areas and more dredging and extraction in the area. In June of 2000, the city approved a rezoning of approximately 26 additional acres located along I-29 into the planned development district for 5 different sub-areas and the 131 acres. On January 16th of 2001, a major amendment was approved by City Council to modify the allowable residential uses and to change sub-area boundaries. We have an existing planned development that has currently 9 different sub-areas that are allowed right now, which identify single-family, townhomes, and condominium residential uses, a restaurant, Lake Lorraine, and the RC Greenway around I-29. The approved plan also depicts residential land uses situated along the existing 31-acre lake. The approved PD equates to an overall density of 3.3 units per acre for the development area. The proposed development is very unique for the city of Sioux Falls. The applicant has described this development as resort living for empty nesters and has done extensive market analysis and demographic for the housing conditions currently in Sioux Falls, as well as what type of conditions are going to be here over the next 10 to 15 years, and the housing that's going to be available when the demographics move to Sioux Falls. The urban design that they're offering lists residential land uses, including higher density, multiple story buildings along the interstate, transitioning to townhouse units nearing Marion Road. The applicant proposes a major amendment to provide for 7 sub-areas which identify townhome-style condominiums and high-rise condominium residential uses, office uses, commercial uses, and the Lake Lorraine. The applicant has revised the major plan, reducing the number of proposed dwelling units from 1,050 to 905. The major amendment request includes proposed density of 6.9 units per acre. The proposed plan offers 54 acres of green space when sub-area A, B, and C are combined. Residential standards for the city of Sioux Falls per city code are as follows. The RS2 single family is 5 to 7 units per acre. RD is 6 to 14 units per acre. RA1 is 10 to 17 units per acre. And RA2 is 18 to 40 units per acre. The proposed condominium residential uses would consist of 11-story buildings along the east shore of the existing lake and 7-story buildings located on the west shore of the lake. The proposed commercial and office uses would be located along the north shore of the lake, and proposed lakeshore development amenities include a beach, park, path, terraces, and a boardwalk around the area that would be provided again for the people that are living in this area. This would be a gated community for the tenants that live in the area, and then the area up to the north would be for the public in the commercial area to the north. The applicant did complete a traffic study, which was completed by HDR, and included the residential area to the south, as well as the commercial area up along Marion Road and 26th Street, and addressed and is continuing to address the city's issues in regards to the public street standards in Lake Lorraine and the Lake PD, and its access out to the public streets, as well as any public improvements and public utilities that need to be addressed. Because the subject application generally complies with the 2015 growth plan and the original 1991 initial development plan, planning staff does recommend approval of the major amendment, and it was approved at Planning Commission with 2 stipulations: that the revised Lake Park PD initial development plans include sub-area regulations as presented, and a revised preliminary subdivision plan should be submitted per Title 15A of the City Code. This ends the staff report.
Are there questions of Jeff, council? Not, thank you. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 13?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm Gary Solomonson. I live at 344A Upland Boulevard in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I have a consulting practice that serves planning services for multifamily housing developments. It's been my privilege during the last 18 months to be part of a planning team out at the Friesen Families location on Marion Road, and have participated in a good many discussions reviewing the currently approved plan and exploring all sorts of ideas and options for the plan that is before you this evening. I'd like to take just a few minutes and share with you the reasoning that has gone into the request to change this venue. As you might note on item number 1 here, as we studied the strengths and the weaknesses of the single-family townhome and condominium plan, which is currently approved in that design scenario, a number of challenging issues began to evolve for us. And if we could go to the site plan, Steve, one of the first items that we had to wrestle with in the old plan, or the currently approved plan, was the impact of the proposed commercial development on the north side of the lake began to emerge as a greater challenge than first believed. North of Genie Drive, as we began to explore current discussions that were going on with a Minneapolis developer as well as some local developers on a large discount center being established there, as well as other large stores, we began to talk about the impact that would have on the plan to erect a 6-story condominium on the north side of the lake. And during those discussions, it became apparent to us, and after a good many conversations with local realtors in Sioux Falls as well as developers, that it might be rather difficult to sell the units that would be facing the commercial side of that development versus the lakeside use. So as we looked at that and began to conclude that maybe what we should do is come up with another idea that would be more compatible with the proposed commercial development north of Genie Drive. And again, after a good many conversations and discussions, we began to explore the possibility of developing a small commercial retail and office center there in sort of a Northern European style that would be compatible with not only the commercial use proposed north of Genie Drive, but also would be easy on the eyes for the residents who would be living around the lake. So if you can begin to imagine on the north edge of Lake Lorraine, sort of a Northern European commercial product that would be designed that would look very residential in nature, is where the planning is at the current time. And as you look at the plan, you will note that there is a boardwalk along the north side of the lake above the sidewalk, and we're looking at restaurants and shops as well as a wellness center, office space, and perhaps some second-story apartments that would be located there. Another issue that evolved through interviews with numerous developers, we realized that we had to rethink the issues of lake access and use, especially for those homes that were located on the perimeter of the project. Not in this sketch, but in the approved site plan, we had 36 single-family lots fronting the lake. And then we had a street, and then on the other side of the street, around the perimeter of the plan, we had townhomes and one small apartment that was planned. In discussions again with developers and area realtors, people felt that we would run into a significant discussion amongst prospective buyers as to lake access. If we had 35 homeowners with lake frontage feeling that their space might be invaded by those living in the townhomes and multifamily around the outer rim of the property or the periphery of the property, that could be problematic also in sales. So with that evolved the idea that maybe what we should do is create a lake environment and venue that had equal access and use for all residents living on the property. And that's where we created a 25 to 30 foot beach all the way around the lake, a seawall, and then about a 3 or 4 foot lawn area, if you will, between the seawall and then an 8 foot wide concrete sidewalk that would be approximately a mile in length around the property, that we would create an environment that would be attractive to all the residents. And then wrapping around the sidewalk and kind of undulating around the lake would be a 30 to 40 foot wide linear park going around the lake. So as we began to evolve these ideas and look at the market issues that we would have to address, it became apparent to us that preparing the lake, the seawall, the linear park, and the path around the lake would be more costly than it was on the original plan. So that now raised another issue for us to address. Next, in preparing the elements of the gated community, it would also become more costly, realizing that some additional work on berms and landscaping would need to be done. If you will note on this plan, it was important to the Friesen family, and because of the relationship they've had with the neighbors there for a good many years as this property has evolved, it would perhaps be more desirable to have berms all along the south edge and then the westerly and south and westerly edges again of the property, so that the view of the existing homes out toward the Lake Lorraine area would be that of a nice landscaped area, as opposed to a 1.5 to 2.5 story kind of solid wall of townhomes. So after a good deal of discussion and debate amongst the planning team, this was a decision that we reached. And this also was something that was important to Jeff and Steve and the city staff as we looked at this project. Preparing the elements of the gated community would also become more costly, realizing that the additional work on the berms and the landscaping needed to be done. And finally, as noted in number 1, the project revenues that would be generated from selling the original number of single-family homes, condominiums, and townhome lots would not be sufficient for a reasonable return, considering the infrastructure cost and the related investment risk now that would have to be taken. So with these factors and many more in mind, we've spent about the last 6 months considering 8 different design scenarios. And when you get Norwegians and Swedes and everybody else in the planning team in the room, a lot of ideas and a lot of suggestions were made, but finally it has evolved into what I think has been a very desirable plan. And during that time, we met with developers, both commercial and residential, to discuss their views and ideas in terms of product, pricing, and what they envision future product needs would be in Sioux Falls as our marketplace continues to evolve. We met with the city planning staff to discuss their views and ideas. We also analyzed and updated our analysis of the demographics for the next 5 to 15 years. And considering the potential impact of the baby boomers, the empty nesters, and others, we moved again toward more multifamily housing. I'll share one statistic with you out of the hundreds that we've worked with in this planning process, but it gives you an idea of the critical mass that is about to come into the demographic pipeline in Sioux Falls as well as other communities in our country. In Lincoln and Minnehaha counties between 2000 and 2005, the number of households with residents who are aged 35 years old and up through 85 plus, with household incomes of 75,000 up, will increase from approximately 12,000 in number to 20,000 in number, or approximately 8,000 households. And it gives you sort of a sense of a changing marketplace in a very dramatic fashion. We also, during this time, formed the Lake Lorraine LLC, which established a number of family goals that also eventually played a key role in rethinking the development concept. And basically here we're talking about the family looking at this in a 15-year cycle as opposed to what often is a typical 3 to 5 year cycle in development in this kind of venue. So with these things in mind, we feel that this plan offers the greatest long-term flexibility in developing the land, and it gives us an opportunity to adjust and respond to the marketplace over that longer period of time. And it responds to the future commercial growth on the north side of the lake. We want to be sensitive to what the neighbors across Genie Drive will be doing in the future and create an environment in between there and the lake residents that will be satisfying, and therefore the Northern European Village idea. And we also wanted to be sensitive to the residential on the west and south sides, the existing homes, and therefore the berming that we've talked about, as well as generating enough revenue to satisfy a fully developed seawall, lake, sidewalk, and park around the lake, developing all the elements of the gated community, building the appropriate infrastructure, and responding in a meaningful way to the goals of the Lake Lorraine LLC. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have those of me. Also, Dick Dempster from Architecture Incorporated would be glad to answer any questions on the site plan. And Don Osbos would like to say just a few words about the work we've done with the neighborhood, as well as a couple of other comments.
Questions? Andy?
What's the thought process behind the gated community part of the plan?
I think the primary issue relates to a couple of items. Number one, the streets will be private streets in the Lake Lorraine development. And in terms of the empty nester market and some of the focus groups and roundtable discussions we've now had with a good number of people in Sioux Falls, those who live in gated communities in second homes around the country expressed a desire to see that kind of opportunity here. We're not talking about the block walls that we have in Las Vegas as you drive around, but we're talking about a defined perimeter. And in terms of the gate entry, the entry into the property, because they will be private streets and be a little bit narrower than your typical city streets and so forth, and the kind of traffic controls we'll have to put in place, speed bumps and so on and so forth. We wanted to limit the amount of traffic coming into the environment, and therefore a card entry system we've looked at so that the residents had that opportunity to come in and have it gated in that sense.
Is that 24 hours a day?
24/7, yes.
Further questions?
Is that this might be a question for Jeff? Is this the first gated community then? I just don't know.
I think there have been a couple that have looked at it and are doing it. I'll let Jeff address that.
We've had at least one other one that's down on Old Yankton Trail Road and Ralph Rogers.
Okay.
Further questions? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 13?
I'm Dawn Osbos with Lake Lorraine. I live at 2911 South Ridgeview Way. Can you hear me? I'm here just to tell you a little bit about, can you hear me?
Pull them down.
Maybe this one will work
There
better,
you
huh? I'm here to tell you just a quick note about the neighbors. I sent out a letter to the neighbors announcing who I was and what the plan was, and to come and meet me, or I'd like to meet them, on the 9th of May this year. And then I received 4 phone calls and 2 visits from neighbors who wanted to come down and greet me and find out what we were up to. Then on the 20th of May, I took a flyer around to every home, and you can see in the yellow lines that I did, had Architecture Incorporated do for me, to show you where I went to let every neighbor know as much as we could. I also talked with Hy-Vee and all of the developments down in the little strip mall in front of Hy-Vee to let them know what we were doing, and invited them to an open house. And we held 3 open houses. We wanted to make sure that the neighborhood had an opportunity to come at different times in case one time didn't work for someone. We did 3 of those. We did one on a 2 on an evening and 1 on a Sunday afternoon for them. We had 91 homes invited and several businesses. We had 17 neighbors stop by at the open houses and ask questions. We had a really great response from all the neighborhood. Most of them were very excited about it, and that was finally something was happening with the project instead of just dust. Some of them expressed interest in moving in. Others just were excited that there would be progress and looking at a park-like atmosphere in front of them. Some were going to miss the wildlife that lived back there. And we did have one comment from one neighbor who lived on Terry Avenue, was a little concerned about the traffic on Terry. We visited with him for quite some time and invited him to come down to the city and get the traffic report, and so far we have not heard from him. So we feel we've done a really good job in contacting the neighborhood, and they've been really supportive to us so far, so we're pretty excited. We've also worked with the police department, the post office, fire prevention, the bus department. And the reason the bus department, I found out that we do not have bus service in our area. And to me, that's very important for marketing and to the residents who will live there, the possibility of being able to get to the shopping areas and over to the mall. So the Lake Lorraine LLC is looking at purchasing a trolley that will have a service that goes from our location over all the way to Meadows on the River and then down to the mall and then back again, so that people can get to the mall on cold days when they don't want to get the car out and those kinds of things. As you know, Jeff said we did the traffic study, and then we were asked to talk about phasing, and our phasing goal is to have the phasing at the first at 32nd Street to do a condominium in that area because our infrastructure is there. It would be a little more reasonable for us to handle you can put the site plan back up. The first 2 buildings next to the lake on the west side, Steve, is what we're looking at, right in that area. In developing that, because our infrastructure, like I say, is there, and it's cost effective for the family to start there. And then also down on the south end along Terry, in that area for the townhome development, because it's easy access to start getting to the infrastructure that would be to the east of us. Any more questions for me?
Any questions?
Yes. When do you plan to have all this accomplished?
Well, the next step, if we get through tonight, is to go through the state of South Dakota Real Estate Commission. You have to have, in a condominium development like this, there has to be an investigation. Due to the 1970s, I guess there were a lot of developers who sold land that really wasn't theirs. So they want to make sure that everybody really owns this land and they're an up-and-up team that's going to put this through. And it's called the Condominium Act, and that'll take between 2 and 6 months. So January, we're really hoping to start promoting and cheering and yelling about the place and getting everybody to come down and see it.
And then final completion date you projected?
Final completion date will probably be 10 to 12 years out if everything goes great.
Further questions? Not. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 13?
Move for approval.
Move for approval, second.
Second, Benninga.
Second, Benedict. Comments on the motion to approve? Not all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Diane, please.
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Benninga,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Item 13 has been approved. We'll move to the introduction and adoption of ordinances. And tonight, we just set the hearing date for September 3rd, 2002 at 7, and there's no audience testimony on these items that we take up tonight. It's just you can ask the staff questions, so just so the audience knows where we're at on that. So, Jeff, you want to start out with 14, please?
We have first reading on a rezoning and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 57th Street South and Galway Avenue.
This rezoning is 15.5 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for residential. In March 2001, the city annexed approximately 46.6 acres down in this subject area, and this annexation for the subject parcel is part of this area. This is a conventional rezoning request to the RS2 residential district. This rezoning is considered an expansion of the existing Galway Park subdivision. Utilities, water, and sanitary sewer will need to be extended to the subject property. There will be sanitary sewer cost recovery due to the developer in the amount of approximately $2,000 an acre before the property is platted. Water is available. The developer is coordinating with the city engineer's office. And the city engineer's office has been contacted to update the drainage study in the area. The subject application complies with the 2015 growth plan and is compatible with the surrounding and planned residential districts.
Questions of Jeff on item 14? Now, do you want to go to the next one? Diane, you want to read that? 15?
We have first reading on a rezoning, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 57th Street South and Galway Avenue.
This is 15 acres south and east of the previous rezoning request. The comprehensive plan also calls for residential in the area. It is also tied into the March 2001 annexation. It's a conventional rezoning request to the RS2 residential district. It is also tied in with the Galeway Park subdivision ordinance. Steve Randall has brought up the subdivision sketch plan for you to review. It also has the following utilities, water and sanitary sewer that need to be extended with the same costs. The subject application complies with the 2015 growth management plan, is compatible with the surrounding existing and planned residential land uses, and received support from Planning Commission.
Questions of Jeff on item 15? Now, do you want to move to 16, Diane?
First reading rezone, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at East 10th Street between 4812 East 10th Street and Foss Avenue.
This rezoning request is approximately 3.3 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for commercial and multifamily residential. The parcel is abandoned railroad right-of-way, which was acquired by F&K, Assam Family Limited Liability, and annexed into the city back in 1981. The water is available near the site. No cost recovery for water service is due. The rezoning would require payment of the drainage system cost recovery fee for the subject property. The prevalent zoning along East 10th Street from downtown to Foss Avenue allows for general highway-type commercial uses with the stated intention that the uses be compatible with the residential neighborhoods. The adjacent properties are Zone C2, so this rezoning would be compatible and would allow for a greater lot depth to be developed along the highway. The application is proposed to conform to the intent of the 2015 growth plan and to allow highway-type commercial land uses along East 10th Street.
Are there questions of Jeff on item 16, Kevin?
Jeff, I'm looking at the map here. It looks like that there is a brown one there. That's an RA. Is that an error?
No, that's not. That's
Okay.
that is an existing RA.
And what use would be allowed in that?
Apartments, multifamily. If they want to do fourplexes, eightplexes, they could go up to 24 units in that area. You can see, Steve Randall, if you want to point for them on their monitors, as it transitions up to the north, there is some RA to the north. Again, the transition from the highway up to the north, this is RA, some more multifamily, and the yellow is the single family, transitioning from the heavy commercial along the highway back to single family.
So it's likely that RA would stay there.
If they can find a developer for RA along the highway, it's an appropriate land use along the highway.
Thank you.
Other questions of Jeff on item 16? If not, that's Diane, 17.
First reading, rezone, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at 1604 and 1700 East 18th Street.
This large parcel of 0.36 acres is, the comprehensive plan calls for industrial. And you can see on the image above, it's this small triangle site here. It's currently RC. The light blue, everything around it is industrial. And the subject property, currently owned, zoned RC, is located between the tower, the currently telecommunications tower, and the River Boulevard. When River Boulevard was constructed, it cut off the subject property from the main RC and the Sioux River Greenway on the north side of the street. The applicant is proposing to create a more marketable property by combining the the industrial zone with the RC properties under one zoning district for a future development. With this combination, he'd have a 1.2 acre site and then be able to develop something on it. You can see from the aerial what site that they're rezoning, and if you go to the next image, Mr. Randall, you can see this is the property owned by the petitioner, and move to the next one. The green parcel, is the one that he is currently rezoning. The subject property has limited access through a residential neighborhood. Potential light industrial uses of the property would be limited to those that didn't require frequent public access. The subject would allow for a more efficient and economical redevelopment of land uses already established in this neighborhood. It was supported by Planning Commission.
Are there questions of Jeff on item 17? If not, 18?
First reading, rezone an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 85th Street South and Southwestern Avenue.
This item is approximately 31.2 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for single and multifamily residential and commercial. The parcel being rezoned is part of a larger parcel which was annexed into the city in February of 2002. On April 3rd, 2002, an initial development plan for Heather Ridge Plan Development was recommended for denial at Planning Commission with a split vote of 3 yeses and 4 noes. The applicant has revised their initial development plan to accommodate a reasonable density and housing units per acre based on staff and Planning Commission's recommendation. They have had numerous 3 or 4 neighborhood meetings. It did go to Planning Commission with some neighborhood opposition and is going forward to you at City Council this evening for the first reading. The site is an irregular shaped parcel with frontages along Southwestern Avenue and West 85th Street. The parcel has many constraints, including a major drainage way which transverses the property from northwest to southeast. The applicant is requesting rezoning to a planned development district to allow a mixed-use residential, including single-family attached residential, multifamily residential, and commercial development. The applicant has provided this image for you, as well as a video that shows conceptual views of the planned development. The concerns that have been raised to planning staff and at the meetings are in regards to 3-story apartment buildings, which are the blue buildings centrally located on the site. So what these conceptual drawings that have been presented by the applicant are trying to show from the views what the views would be of a 3-story building once the development got completed. The applicant has provided the proposed land uses for the Heather Ridge 2 addition, encompassing a land use area of 160 acres. The density calculations are in your packet. There's 4 acres of twin homes, approximately 10 acres of fourplexes, 10 acres of multifamily. The planned development is 31 acres. When the planned development gets subtotaled, the 31 acres has 328 living units for a density of 10.5 dwelling units per acre. The plan has been revised to accommodate a greater distance between subarea B and up to 4 units attached in subarea C. The 10-acre parcel designated for high-density residential is approximately 1 city block or 800 feet north of 85th Street. This area is now also buffered with subarea C that will be improved with townhouses. The original proposal that came through and that was denied was 447 units. Now the application is down to 328 units. There would be street assessments due on 85th Street and a portion of Western Avenue when engineering comes in to do their grading and final plans. Chapter 1545 of the Planned Development District City Ordinance says it is the intention of the district to provide flexibility from conventional zoning regulations with increased public review for a planned development district project to encourage well-planned, efficient urban developments. The growth management plan has or does describe this land area as appropriate for multifamily residential, commercial, drainage ways, and single-family residential. There again are many constraints due to the topography of this parcel. The final development plan that would need to go through Planning Commission would ensure that the land use transitions are well designed. One of the neighbors that was at the Planning Commission stated there has been no development that would allow for similar densities next to an existing single-family area. Another neighbor stated that increased residential densities would still be obvious to this rural residential neighborhood that's south and west of the area. The majority of the neighbors that are concerned about the development live south and west of this area. You have the aerial. They live in this area, which is an existing rural residential area that's outside of the city of Sioux Falls, and this is the subject property. The issues that came up at Planning Commission were in regards to whether or not this proposal was being addressed and was referencing the 2015 comprehensive plan. There was much discussion and much debate and conversation in regards to the 2015 comprehensive plan. Based on that, I just wanted to again point out some of the issues on the 2015 plan. There are the 14 general goals in the 2015 plan. Staff has obviously reviewed this plan, has looked at it from the framework of this document and what the plan development's intent was for this development. And we've looked at the policies that are listed in this document. The policies that are listed in the plan in future urbanized areas, if you can go to that, Mr. Arnold. Are listed in this first chapter. And when you're looking at the densities that are required, the general goals are listed. The next page, Steve. On the bottom, the planning policy framework for planned and future urbanized areas. It states that we must allow compact contiguous growth around the city's fringe. Next page, Steve. We must have development along our floodplains and natural areas. We should have new development to be compatible with their existing adjacent developments. We should have multiple family along commercial development and around commercial development. We should have high density around our major street intersections. We should have flexibility in our densities with project review from our city staff. We should have mix of housing types. We should have mix of housing standards. We should make sure we get out in front of growth and have suitable park and open space. We should have pedestrians and bicycle access. We should have design and street layouts. We should secure street right-of-way. And we should guide new development with urban street elements. And then, Steve, if you can go to page 4.4. The last item that is under consideration is in regards to the land use. No, 4.4. That one right there, yep. Is in regards to the top section right here. The residential section in regards to what the density should be. The 2015 plan calls for land use, location, and design criteria in residential, low density, medium density, and high density. Medium density should be 6 to 16 units per acre, and this development is currently at 10.5 units per acre. The issue really comes down to urban development coming out to the fringes of a community. as the city of Sioux Falls continues development, this is going to happen over and over again, and whether or not this is compatible with our 2015 plan. Send staff report.
Questions of Jeff on item 18? Questions? Not 19?
First reading on a rezoning and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at 1212 South Southeastern Drive.
This is approximately 0.93 acres. Comprehensive plan calls for low-density residential. The item was deferred at the June 26th meeting so that the applicant could address the neighborhood concerns addressed at the public hearing. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject property to RA1 to allow development to 8 single-family attached twin houses on one lot. Because the adjacent zoning and land uses are low-density residential, staff considers this to be an isolated zoning and does not support it as a matter of policy. In the past, isolated zoning requests have been approved when substantial neighborhood support for the proposed development has been demonstrated at the public hearing. The size of the property would allow a maximum development of 15 units on one lot under RA1 zoning regulations. The Planning Commission denied this use, and the motion passed unanimously.
Questions of Jeff on item 19, Kermit?
How many neighbors are adjacent to the property?
We have one single-family house to the south, and we have a church to the north.
And how did the church respond to this?
They were in support.
And then the other neighbor was against?
Correct.
So 50-50?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of Jeff on item 19? If not, 20?
First reading on a rezoning and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at proposed West 34th Street North and North Career Avenue.
This is approximately 34 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for single-family residential and RC recreational district. The rezoning request offers residential land uses totaling 30 acres, an office of approximately 3 acres. The area in the northeast portion of the site is proposed for multifamily residential land uses. The proposed land uses in the south are single-family, and the office would be at the corner of 34th and Career. A preliminary subdivision plan would be required per city code prior to any platting, recording, or use of the parcel. The 2015 Growth Management Plan calls for land use transition at or near Career Avenue. The plan depicts industrial, economic development east of Career with single-family land uses proceeding to the west. The Comprehensive Development Plan is a framework within which a range of specific growth management policies and recommendations are discussed. The application complies with the 2015 Growth Plan, and it was approved at Planning Commission.
Questions of Jeff on item 20? Not item 21.
First reading on a rezoning and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at proposed North Career Drive and Marquee Avenue.
This is 40 acres. The comprehensive plan calls for industrial. It's directly east of the previous rezoning request. The applicant is requesting a mixed land use development. Land use is requested within the Flynn Heights Business and Technology Park plan development include office and limited commercial, multifamily residential, and light industrial. The applicant has provided a conceptual street, lot, and block layout, and a preliminary subdivision plan would be provided at a later date. There's pending water main cost recovery, sanitary sewer cost recovery, and drainage system cost recovery. The 2015 Growth Management Plan depicts the entire parcel for industrial economic development, again on the east side of Career with residential on the west side of the area. The plan for development offers the ability to incorporate a transportation system in the area, which accommodates industrial and associated truck traffic on Marquee Street and the residential and office traffic on Career, so that we can again continue to separate the land uses from the transportation network. The application complies with the 2015 Growth Management Plan and was approved at Planning Commission. Send staff report.
Questions? Kenyon?
Jeff, just a comment, and it's not, I guess, necessarily specific to this one, but I don't know that all of the new council members have the 2015 growth management plan. Would you, by any chance, have some extra copies of that you could make sure everybody has?
Yes, sir.
As you've continued to talk about it,
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I was brought to my attention that not everyone has that. So
Yep.
thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Are there further questions of Jeff on item 21? If not, thank you very much, Jeff. We appreciate it. Item 22.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by providing supplemental appropriations.
Good evening, Dean Nielsen. Before you this evening is first reading of an ordinance to provide funding for a project for park and recreation and providing some funds from a construction sales tax fund. This year is for the grade separation at Pasley Park and provides the funding in the plan you approved last week.
Are there questions of Dean on item 22? If not, item 23.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by providing supplemental appropriations.
This is a supplement for also some amendments you made to the 2002 capital program, and funding comes from donations, which was from State Farm, $40,000. Capital improvement sales tax of $52,000 would be needed for some public works. Parks and Recreation had private donations for $130,752. Police had a Bulletproof Vest partnership grant and a federal drug rebate revenue, all of which was approved for the capital program in 2002.
Questions of Dean on item 23? If not, thank you. Item 24. Kevin?
We have a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by changing the council's order of business.
This is an ordinance initiated by myself and Councilmember Rust. It's quite simple. The ordinance takes the public input item on the agenda and moves it from the last point on our agenda to the first possible point after the approval of the regular agenda. It's been my experience over the 2 years that I've sat on the council that every once in a while someone from the public would like to come and talk to us about how we do the public's business here. And I just felt that it was time that we gave them the opportunity to do that without having to wait all into the wee hours of the morning as we do sometimes. So that's what this ordinance does.
Thank you, Kevin. Questions of Kevin? Not, thank you very much. Move to hearings and resolutions, item 25.
I'm sorry. Do
Go
we
ahead,
need
I'm
a
sorry,
motion
excuse me.
yet for approval?
Oh, yeah, that's
Can
right.
I have a question before I'd like to make
Okay,
that
yeah,
motion, but I have a
excuse
question for Dean. Dean, are these all pressing issues that we absolutely have to get to on the third? I'm just looking at this, and I'm just sure there's going to be other things that are going to come up. We're looking at a pretty late evening that night, I'm guessing. Some of these are somewhat technical, and I'm guessing we're going to get a lot of public input.
For the two supplements that I have previously, if you delay it a week, the 9th, you have the budget coming up that night.
Okay.
And basically on these two, really, it's just putting the money in place from your previous action.
I'm just trying to avoid what Kevin was just referencing, having some individuals here extremely late at night. And, my guess is it might be a late night for us, but that being said, I guess we can defer them at that time if we need to.
If you want to put it to the 9th, but the 9th is loading up too with all the assessment hearings that night plus the budget.
Is there a motion to set the
I'll
second?
move to set the date of hearing for September 3rd.
Second, Benninga.
Second by, to set the second reading for December 3rd, 2002 at 7 p.m. There's been a motion, has been seconded. Comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor of that motion will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Diane?
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
Knutson. Benninga.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
has been approved. First reading. Item 25.
We have a resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriations from the 2002 contingency account to the library MOU.
This, once again, is putting the finances in place from action previously taken by the council. This year provides $40,530 from the contingency account to purchase 2 self-service checkout systems. And the reason that was moved up was in order to save about $5,000.
Are there questions of Dean on item 25? Are there others that wish to address the council on item 25? Not, is there committee, council discussion?
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second, Gleason.
Second. Comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor of item 25, I vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Diane?
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Knutson, Benega,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Item 25 has been approved. Now we're down to public input. Is there anyone that wants to address the council? You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Is there somebody else, or that's all you get?
Pardon?
Is that all you get?
That's right, Dick. That's all you get.
Okay, well, I'll try not to exceed that, although I could. I'm in favor of your ordinance about not having to wait around till the wee hours of the morning, although this isn't very wee. This is pretty nice. This is the second meeting I've been to tonight. I'm here to say I
Will
think...
you identify yourself, please?
Oh, excuse me. My name is Dick Robinson. I think most people know me, so I guess I just took it for granted. I'm a downtown merchant. I used to be an architect. Now I'm a merchant prince. You know, I'm opening a gallery, or have opened a gallery on the downtown streets, and I've run afoul of your parking tickets or your parking meters many times. I have contested a great deal of your parking citations that I've gotten, and the other day I was more than successful. I beat $21 out of $41 of tickets. If I could have argued my case a little more, I probably could have beaten a little more, but he said take it or leave it, and I said I'd take it because that was a good deal. I'm here to say that I'm going to lead, I got another ticket today while I came to your meeting tonight, because there are no free spaces around this building as there are around City Hall, which I think is ridiculous. Another issue. But I got this. I was parked halfway between the two, and I just decided I wasn't going to put money in the meter at 4:30 or 4:45, whenever it was, because I should be able to park free and come into this building. I came down Dakota, and of course we've not allowed parking here because we allow the trucks from Argus Leader to control the city's destiny. Because they have to make wide turns. I say let the Argus Leader get smaller trucks and keep the parking meters for the people, at least make those free if you're not going to make them free in front. But I am going to lead a campaign of downtown people, they don't know this yet, against the parking meters, to get rid of them. I did this, or I was involved in that when I was on the city council in Rapid City. It's worked very well. There was a call-in show the other day where somebody talked about that, and they actually had Bonnie Hughes, who used to be in our city government here, in urban renewal here, working for Dave Alberts, is now in the city planning department out there, call in and say it's worked very well in Rapid City. There's no issue that can come up or no problem you think you can have without having meters that they haven't solved in Rapid City, and yet they have very orderly parking. They don't have parking meters that make people stay away from downtown and opt instead to go to malls where they don't have such devices. Yet we do control the length of people parking. You wouldn't have to fire your parkettes, and they're well equipped with their onboard computers that they can keep track of where people are. Right now, if I wanted to, I could park in front of my gallery and feed the meter all day long and never move from that. That's not right. I mean, that exists right now. I also found out that if I can scribble delivery vehicle on a sign and put it up on my car and move it around a little bit, that I can park all day for free. That's another little tip if you're out there, if you can legitimately claim you have a delivery vehicle. Really, we need to make downtown more friendly. And my last issue, I guess, was one of the things I took to contest, is when we had a promotion downtown, and it was called Crazy Days, where we're trying to get people to come downtown, spend their money downtown, and make a lively downtown. They had a person going around, I understand illegally, saying that he was the meter man. He was dressed in a cape and he was plugging meters for people when they ran out. It was my assumption, seeing him, that he was slightly ahead of the meter maids and was plugging meters, but I understand that that's illegal. You can get arrested for that. So it was per chance that I left my car in one place, assuming that the meter man was taking care of me all day. It was on the street where you're allowed to park all day, same street but at the opposite end of the block. And I got back and I had 2 parking tickets and, to my chagrin, a ticket that said, or a little note that says, "I'm the meter man and I've saved you from getting a $3 ticket." It was probably the 3rd one he saved me from getting, but he unfortunately didn't save me from getting the other 2. Those are the kind of things that I took into contest and beat the city on, basically. I think that the meters make a very unfriendly downtown, and there ought to be limits that are enforceable without the meters. So I just putting the city on notice that I will be leading that crusade, if you will.
Thank you, Dick. You made the 5 minutes. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. Are there others that wish to address the council on public input time? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second?
Second, Gleason.
Second. All in favor of adjourn, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Diane?
Council members Howes,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Knutson, Benninga,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Staggers.
We will stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
We don't come up here to entertain you. We come up here to inform you.
What kind of morons run this outfit?